At VCF Midwest last year, I met these guys from Juicy Crumb Systems. They make boards you can put into old iMacs to use them as external monitors and USB docking stations. Now, Apple actually had a feature called Target Display Mode, where you could use your iMac as an external display. But around 2014, they decided it was better for people to just throw away old tech than find new uses for it, because I guess modern iMacs don't have that feature anymore. Luckily, companies like Juicy Crumb exist to save at least some of these old iMacs from landfill. They make kits where you rip out the guts of the old Mac, install one of their PCBs, and then you can use the iMac as an external display and docking station. Other YouTubers like Action Retro even figured out how to stuff an M4 Mac Mini inside the guts of an old half-dome iMac like this one behind me, but today we're not going to get that crazy. My dad has an old 24-inch iMac that Apple declared obsolete almost a decade ago now. Rather than throw it out, he's going to install Docklite in it so he can keep using it. Juicy Crumb sent us this Docklite after I talked to them at VCF, so I'm marking this video as sponsored, but they aren't paying us to make the video and they have no control over what we're saying. I have it here plugged into my old MacBook Air over mini DisplayPort, and it seems to be working great. So Dad, you put this thing together. Can you walk me through that process?
Unboxing is always fun. They had some little trinkets in there, including a piece of candy, which was gone pretty quickly. So that was fun, but you get to the meat of it, that card, the magic card, which was going to make this thing into a usable piece of art / display for our house. Yeah, and here you see the card. It's very clean. You can see, since they weren't putting the processor and all the pieces together, they were just using it as a monitor. It's got a lot of empty space on that board. Then the easy part, that taking that lid off, I love doing that. It's the first time I could do that, it was like, wow, that's awesome. Taking the memory out, that was kind of interesting too. I never knew you could swap memory that easily on that particular model, but...
Well, in this model too, we tore down more of it, and I found out that it has a replaceable CPU, swappable RAM, you can upgrade the hard drive, it even has an MXM GPU on a card. So like, this was probably one of the most upgradable iMacs Apple ever made. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad that they didn't include the Target Disk Mode support in it. But
yeah. That nice cool feature to hold the lid on is created by some very strong magnets. And so every screw you're taking out there, the tool gets clinked into the magnet, the screws jump to the magnet, and then lifting it, the cables that we're all connecting, were 4 cables connecting that. That one cable is a little tricky, right? I felt really successful. This one where you're pulling out the video cable, popping that little thing up and sliding it out. The easy part, the harder part is going to be sliding that back in. I hear I'm getting brutal a little bit there, Jeff. That's a little brutal with the tool. They all came out with the hands. But I use the tools every once in a while to help get it started. Going by the instructions on the book, which for a lot of things it was very helpful. It gave you the right things to do in the right order. Got all the screws out so I could get the fan out, the optical drive out, the hard drive out, and then eventually the motherboard setup out completely. And again, a testament to some of the Apple engineering. It was the stuff I was doing. It felt really good. It felt well engineered. I did not know of the cooling system. It's a pretty good one, pretty good cooling system in there. So
it's good engineering for a weird space, though.
Yeah,
like the heat pipes going over for that GPU, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, it's like fitting it under the hood. You get the hood first, and then you got to fit the stuff into it.
That's when the designers get this first say, and then the engineers have to come in and work around them.
Yes, they do. Now I'm pulling the cables through, which was also easy. The cables literally come through the holes that are left over from the ports in the back. And you got to use the 2 that are big enough to push the connectors through. So
I was also thinking about this too. In the end, this looks a little worse, and it's, you have cables hanging out of the back of the iMac. Mm-hmm. But when I looked at the motherboard that you took out, the cables or the plugs that they have on the back of it are all angled, and that seems like you wouldn't be able to find those on like DigiKey or whatever website you're buying your parts from for these boards. So I'm guessing that's a cost-saving thing to not make custom angled cable connections.
Yeah. Going to put the new card in, that process was a little clumsy because the instructions just say slip it in there, kind of like go put it in. But in actuality, to get it in deep enough, you got to hold on to the IR sensor if you want that to work, and you push it in, and you got to get it in and line up the right holes with the standoffs. That was the trickiest part. The standoffs, there were 4 of them on the card. I could only get 3 of the 4 screws in for that. So I wasn't sure which size to use because there was, 3 different size screws in that group of screws for the motherboard. But eventually you figure it out. I wish I would have documented it. I could have told them to put that in their next iteration of the manual. So and then once the board is mounted back in, it was simple to get the connectors. They came up right in the right spot. The guys who made the board put the connectors in the right spot. So you just literally grabbed and plugged, grabbed and plugged, grabbed and plugged. Moved on to the putting the display back in. Tricky part again is the display. It's got to be close enough for that one cable to make it, which means you're putting your hand in a small area with that little slide in and catch. You can't even really see it very well. So you'll see here, most of the cables here, the three of them are very easy to connect. It's that little one. And I was very proud because I made it on almost the first try after watching some YouTube online videos of just how you can handle those connectors. It's easy to kind of dance it into place and give it a push until you feel it slide in, and then clip the clip forward until you feel it click over the end, and you're done. Now you're getting anxious to test it, but you got more work to do. The screws then, when I was putting it back together, the screws were jumping. They were just jumping everywhere. I was like, come on, I was using tools and everything.
On the assembly line, I'm sure they must have had a specialized tool to put those screws in that held the screw very tightly so it didn't jump off.
So it was a nice overall, a pretty nice install. You know, it went in well, first try, worked. That was very exciting. Now, there was a time, though, when all of a sudden I went to do the video. I was like, oh, yeah, I got that adapter. I put my HDMI adapter on there. It looked like an HDMI. I didn't even look at the connector for video, and it was not HDMI. So it was DisplayPort, which was like, what?
That was my choice. And looking back in hindsight, most of the things we plug into this are HDMI. You can choose HDMI or DisplayPort when you buy it, but you got to make that choice when you order.
Yeah, it kind of looked like you could just take a wrench and just crunch that and make it the right shape and plug it right in. But I decided to look, and sure enough, I never knew I had an adapter for it, but I did. Now I'm turning it on. I'm hitting the button going, where is it? And then it came up. The Mac must have seen it, started the process, came up. And then it was great. Ever since, everything that happened after that was great. So one of the things was we couldn't get the brightness. There's no brightness adjustment, but there is an answer for that, right?
There's a software thing that you can install on Mac OS, but there's apparently a Windows version coming too that'll let you adjust the brightness on the iMac since Apple doesn't have a physical control for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course I was anxious to go and look at it. What is it like? Is it seeing it as a second display like you would think? Is it calling it something that makes sense? Are the USB devices there? It was fun to see it all there. I had my choice of resolutions. USB showed the camera, and it showed the IR unit, but it did not show the SD card. So while we were editing, I decided I'd rip that back open and try to see what the heck's going on with that SD drive especially, and get a better look at the board, actually. You get a little Jeff video of that board. And in putting it back together, what do you think happened?
It works.
It works. We got the SD drive working, and magically we found two USB ports down here, and they work. And then over here, there's a couple of buttons. We don't know what they do. But
why don't you press one? Maybe it's brightness. Is it doing anything? Hold it down. Oh yeah, it is. That got dimmer. Hold down the other one.
It looks like it got dimmer. I didn't know.
Yeah, there you go. Huh? Yeah, it's getting brighter.
I don't think I added that, and it was.
Yeah.
So here,
there you go. So you don't have to have the software to make it.
Look at that.
Oh, see, yeah, there you go.
Definitely.
No, okay, so now we figured out what those buttons are for. The hidden buttons. I think you put the RAM door on, so you didn't even notice that they were there.
I did put the RAM door on. Didn't even notice it. And then I had to tape over it because the light glows out, and Mom didn't like the light going in the hallway.
Yeah. So we did try a couple of those things. Well, you'll try the software later, but I would say if you have an old laptop with an old iMac as a screen, that combination, I'm not sure if that'll work or not. You can leave a comment if you know it does or not. But anyway, so everything starts working if you just take it apart and put it back together.
Exactly. I even got a better fit out of it. It felt stronger, sturdier, everything. So do it twice.
We also loaded up QuickTime and turned on the iSight webcam on here, and that worked without a hitch.
It did work without a hitch. It's whatever that resolution was, but it's pretty good.
I think it might be 1080p. It's either 720 or 1080 on here. It's a pretty decent camera built, and they have enough depth that they can put like a real lens and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that it's even angled a tiny bit downward, so when you're looking at the monitor, it has the right angle on your face.
It did look good. So so that was one thing it lit up without any issue at all. And the only thing we didn't get was the microphone.
Yeah, but the microphone, I actually emailed Juicy Crumb about this because we were wondering, we saw a microphone connection inside, but the cable that was given was a TRRS cable, which could do like headset signal. But they said that the microphone connection, you can optionally connect another adapter that gets microphone and speaker and combines it. Or you can have another cable just sticking out of the back of the iMac for the microphone if you wanted to do it that way. So that's something that should work on here. We didn't have the cable and we didn't want to take everything apart just to test the microphone since we have a good one built into the Mac itself. Then this is something that I didn't even know these iMacs had it. It has an IR receiver, so you could use an Apple remote like those old school iPod remotes to play back media, and it's inside of this little Apple logo, which is a clever design feature. And you said that was like you had to be careful putting a board in.
Juicy Crumb they give you a little track to take it out of the iMac, and then they give you a little track and you slide it on the track, and when you assemble it, you got to make sure the track slides in and it doesn't slip out and that kind of thing. But once it's in there, it puts it right in the area it needs to be. So.
Yeah, and I don't have an iPod remote. I used to have like 10 or 20 of those little things hanging around. But I did have a Flirc Skip 1S, which I bought a couple of these a couple years ago when Logitech killed off their Harmony remotes. You can program the remote on your computer to do anything, and it actually had a preset for iPod remote. So I loaded that up on my Mac. We brought the control over, and it worked perfectly with this Mac through the iMac.
Yes,
which is pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I still probably that was the second time in my life I used a remote for a Mac something, but.
For a while, I used an old Mac Mini as a media center PC when I was in college. So I used the remote with that. You could play back movies and stuff with Xbox Media Center, XBMC. So it was kind of fun to have that throwback. I don't think many people use IR on Macs, but it's there. And you could probably also use a software like Remote Buddy to do other things with other types of remotes too. So you don't have to have a programmable remote or an iPod remote. Something interesting that we found was when you press the power button on the iMac, all that seems to control is the backlight on the LCD. It doesn't turn off this whole thing. It just turns off the backlight, which it does save power, but it also means that like if this is off and you plug it in, it'll look like it's a monitor on your connected computer. So just if you have one of these, keep that in mind.
Audio still plays through. So.
Yeah, the audio still works. The iSight camera still works. Everything still works on here except just the backlight's off.
And I forgot how good that audio actually was. It's pretty good audio,
Yeah, those speakers, I don't know how many watts they do, but it's like it's a pretty full, rich sound. For this era of Mac in the 2010s, early 2010s, this was like the best sound you could get on a Mac out of any of them built in. But with that backlight, if you turn it off, this uses like 2 or 3 watts of power.
Right.
With the backlight on, it's like 30 watts of power.
Yeah, about 33 I was measuring.
So. Yeah, you had measured that with your little third reality thing.
Yeah, it was. That's a great little device for 5 of them or 6 of them now I have.
So after we put this all together, what are some things that you thought about the whole process?
Well, one of the things was the instructions. They were a little fuzzy, but there were some things, like lowered into place the board, and it was like, that's a little more complicated than that because you got the IR wanting to fall off and the... or move as you're doing it, and then how many screws are you expected to reconnect with, that kind of thing. Would have been nice detail. And then when you're putting the connectors back on, just to know what they are and how many pins or something like that, so you grab the right connector.
Yeah, like in the manual itself. Because on the board I saw that there were labels, but a lot of the labels, when you plug something in, it covers up the label.
Yeah.
So you don't know what like you can't confirm, like, yes, this was the right one for this.
Yeah. So I personally marked my drawing up that they have there, which helps you. Very helpful drawings. But like I said, for the most part, what you saw was what you needed to see, and the rest of it, if you're tech, you'll be able to figure out. And I had to pick the depth of the screw because there were like 2 or 3 sizes of long screws, and I kind of worked with that a little bit and chose the ones that are in there now doing just fine. So
it'd be nice to have just like, here's the lengths of the screws that you use, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a hard thing is they probably are designing this kit for multiple iMacs, and maybe there are differences, but calling those out would be helpful probably.
Yeah. Like somebody like me could have measured them and actually got that information back to you to put into your manual.
Yeah. Maybe next time.
Or online documentation.
Yeah.
So another issue was it says 7A and 7B that talks about an inverter connector and HD SED power connector, and I don't think those are relevant at all, but they might be on some models, but they weren't on this one. So that was a little confusing. You look around for a while trying to not lose track of something like that.
What did I not do?
Yeah, what did I not do? The one thing I didn't do.
And then, we mentioned the optical drive earlier too, but did you say that there were instructions for it in there somewhere?
Well, they do say to reinstall it, but I remember when I was doing the work on it, it had it opened up. You're putting the optical drive back in, if nothing else, to keep from things falling in there. But putting it back in, and you're like, where do I hook the connectors? It was the first time I realized, like, oh, I don't think this optical drive is going to work again. And I was kind of anticipating it would, and that's one of the fun things. You could literally come in and slip a DVD in or something.
Yeah, I mean, how many people even have DVD ROMs anymore? But exactly. I did ask Juicy Crumb about this. Apparently, they said that they're working on something. There's a way to add an accessory onto the board that they have currently, I think. Don't take my word for it, but you can ask them about it. But I think there's some options that they're looking at to get the optical drive to work too, because it's just a SATA thing, and their board can have extra functionality to adapt that to USB. So
so we better save the connectors that were on the unit that we took out.
Yeah, save those things in case that does become a feature. So apparently this was like one of the first models that they had worked on in this lineup, and so they are taking our feedback into account. And I think if they make some more of these manuals, they'll probably have some updates to them to help with those kind of things. Because it sounds like Juicy Crumb is like us. It's like a small operation, and they want to do right by the customers and everything. And if you do have any issues with it, or if you have questions about them, feel free to email them too. I think the two things that I think about this after Dad brought it back, since I didn't work on it, I got to see it, which I don't normally do, like as an end user and not as somebody assembling it. And the first thing I thought was like, it's really clunky to move it around with all these cables hanging out. So it'd probably be very hard to make connectors that fit into the iMac so you could plug straight into it. And you wouldn't be able to do DisplayPort or anything without cutting into it and all that. But it would be nice to have like shorter dongles with cables that plug into them or something like that, because it gets a little bit bothersome carrying it all around with you and having the cables hang out. Even bringing it in here, we were like stumbling over things.
Yeah, because you can't unplug them. Plugged on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. So they just have to hang out here. And if one cable is annoying, having 4 hanging out the back or 3 is not the most fun. I think the biggest sticking point for a lot of people with this is going to be the price. And it's a reality that you can't get past. If you're making like 100 of these at a time, or 50, or however many they make in batches, they're not going to get economies of scale, and they're going to have to charge a pretty hefty amount. Now, the price isn't terrible. It's like $300, $350 for a kit shipped from Australia to anywhere in the world, which is kind of cool. For what you get, considering this is a 1080p monitor, and you could get a 4K monitor for less than $300 nowadays, that's pretty decent. If you're just looking at it for getting a monitor, that's probably not the way to look at this. It's more saying like, save this from going to waste, have a cool looking thing on your desk or wherever you're putting this, and it has speakers and an SD card if that works, and IR port and the iSight camera. Like if you use all those features, you could maybe justify that. But I think the main audience for something like this is going to be people who liked these iMacs or who liked the old basketball iMac. I don't think it's for people looking to find a good value in an old iMac. Because it's just buy a monitor if you just need a monitor. Don't go and buy one of these and the Juicy Crumb just to have a monitor.
Right, and there would be that extra value if that optical drive worked.
Yeah, if that works, you're starting to look at a little more value, because now you have the camera, the optical drive, and they make these kits for iMacs with Retina displays too. Some of them. So they don't make it for every iMac in the line. That's the tough thing. You have to look up if your iMac is supported or not. And this one, luckily, was.
Yeah, and it's got that iMac mini stand right there.
Yeah, you could put your Mac right underneath, or a little mini PC.
Yeah.
So thanks so much to Juicy Crumb for sending this over. And as Apple approaches their 50th anniversary, maybe they can get back to their roots of making iMacs that last a little longer without having to perform surgery on them.